Hello, friends. Hello, I'm so excited for this conversation today. This is going to be a fun one. I'm going to be joined by Meg Garland in just a second, and we're going to be talking about really stepping into your authenticity, speaking up. She's very bold, she's very hilarious, and let's see here. I'm gonna invite her. I've done this about a million times, and hey, Amanda.
Hello,
Meg, hello.
how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. I really hope my Wi-Fi cooperates for this.
Totally understand. You have a farm, a homestead, correct?
Yes,
Let's
correct.
just dive into this because I know that there's lots of people joining right now who already know about you, but you're a self-proclaimed city girl gone country.
Correct.
Is there any part of you when you were younger that thought your life would look like what it looks like right now?
Like literally no part. Even when we moved to our acreage, I didn't even think I would have animals. We just like being in the country. Like we're not meant to be in the city. So we moved out to our acreage because my husband grew up on acreage. I grew up, well, my parents live on an acreage, but it's one of those like subdivision acreages. It's like 5 minutes out of town. So I don't consider it like country living. So no, we bought our acreage and we really had no intentions of getting any animals. So yeah.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. Lots of things obviously have changed over the last few years. So you were exposed to having land, being, on acreages, being kind of separate a little bit. But what has made the big push for you, the big change for you to really have a lot and tell people, how many animals do you have? What do you have going on right now? For those who don't know you at all.
We have 5 mini donkeys. We've got, oh, like 6 goats and like 8 goat babies. We've got chickens and ducks, a beef cow, now a milk cow and 2 calves. And we got all the animals. But what really made me get into the animals was waking up to like everything that was going on in the world. Like beginning of pandemic, I had total opposite views than I do now. I was like sanitizing groceries, like doing all that kind of stuff. And then like as I slowly started to wake up, it just like I always say, you go down one rabbit hole and then it's just like never ending. There's just so many to go down. So I started going down rabbit holes, started waking up, and then obviously when you kind of wake up to that, it all just happens at once. Like it's kind of like a blur. But I started following more people that had that mindset and homesteaders and things like that. And then it's like I don't know. There wasn't a day where I was like, I want to start a homestead. Like I'm sure there was, but I don't remember. Do you know what I mean? Like it was just like one day I had all these animals and it was like cool. But it was waking up to everything that was going on in the world and the corruption. And then you see the corruption in the food industry and all of that stuff. So waking up, like I went hard down the rabbit hole. So I woke up to like everything all at once. So once I woke up to all of that, it was like, yeah, this is the life that I want to live. And then even at the beginning of that, though, when I started getting chickens and goats, I was never like, I wasn't breaking, like baking my own bread and things like that. So it all was just like little baby steps that got to like all of this. But yeah, I was definitely going down the rabbit holes.
Okay, I want to go back a little bit because I know the feeling when you start to be presented with new information and it just resonates as truth, but it's so opposite of how you once thought. It can be really overwhelming and uncomfortable and fear-inducing, right? When we want to get out of the fear, it can be fear-inducing. So how did you navigate? Because it sounds like this really opened you up. And before the pandemic, you were like, just living your life in the
Just in
world.
La La Land, like
I
everything.
don't, it's so tough because we've all been there and we're still deceived in different ways. And like, there's so much more to wake up to. But I know what you mean. When you have that shift, you don't go back. You don't go back.
It is fearful in the beginning. And like I was, because I woke up to so many things all at once, I was like it like consumed me, right? I was living in a lot of fear. But I think that's part of why I switched to the homesteading, because like it was a way to like take my power back, like in that fear, if that makes sense. Because it's like, okay, like you can't, can I swear on here? Do you care?
Oh yeah, please do.
Because it's kind of like, oh, we're fucked. Like everything, you know, you just, like, I thought my kids were going to get taken away from me, that we were going to concentration camps, like all of this stuff. Like I thought it was happening now. Like it just, I was living in so much fear. So I think that was also a way to like get my mind off of that instead of like sitting there literally just in fear. I was like my way of taking my power back a bit and being like, fuck the system. Like, so it was kind of, it helped me get out of that like fear space, because my husband was like, okay, like that's enough. Because my husband's not on the same, well, okay, my husband is on the same page as me in the sense that he hates the government, you know, the system, all that stuff, but he doesn't have social media. He doesn't go down any rabbit holes. As soon as you bring up a conspiracy side of things, he's like, I don't want to hear it. Like he knows the government's fucked. He hates Trudeau, like all that kind of stuff, but he won't go down the rabbit holes. And if I bring it up, he's like, I don't want to hear it. So he was like, this is consuming you. I was like, I think you're right. So I had to take a step back in that. The homesteading definitely helped with that.
I'm glad you're saying that, and like the self-awareness of that, because as someone who's worked in news through this, there was a point, and that's why I'm doing these conversations, where I was like, okay, people have access to all the information. If they really want to find it, there's the information. But now how do we help people emotionally regulate and actually be empowered? Because just living in fear, that's not going to change anything. And then how do we stop being addicted to the, the scroll, the news scroll, and start to empower each other to speak up, be authentic, have a range of emotions, be real with each other, have hard conversations. How do we switch to that mode instead of like flipping through social media mode,
Yeah. And it's, like, and that's kind of where my social media, like at the beginning of the pandemic, when I first woke up, it was very like, this is how it is. You're right. You're wrong. Left versus right. Like I was still stuck in that aspect of things. And then now I'm at the point where it's like, okay, like you said, the information's out there. I'm not going to be able to wake everyone up. If they want to know, they could easily know. And so now I'm like, I want to focus on helping those that are awake or want to wake up or want to know more, how they can, like you said, navigate through the fear, the emotional roller coaster, the maybe not having friends and family understand, or taking your power back, right? Breaking away from the system and not relying on them so much and all that stuff. And it's hard because everyone's at such a different spot. Like some people that, like I said, there's like unlimited rabbit holes that you can go down. Some people are waking up over here, people are waking up to this over here, and everybody's at a different spot. But overall, you're coming to the conclusion that things are not the way that we thought they were.
Yeah.
And things that we've been told is truth, or to just accept, or this is how it is, we're starting to realize like, no. And there's a big group of us that don't want it that way. And community is huge. Like I think that has helped so many people, is knowing that they're not alone. Because if you are just in like your local community where maybe your friends and family don't think the same way or whatever, it can be really, really lonely, which on top of the fear is just, it's not good. So having that community and being like, okay, I'm not alone. There are millions of people that feel the exact same way and aren't settling for going back to normal. You know what I mean? Like we don't want to go back to normal. The normal that we had was not normal. We were just convinced that that's how it's always been. That's how it's always going to be. Like, and there's so many of us that are like, no. So it's, I think finding those people that are, because there's people that I've had to unfollow that I followed the whole pandemic because I loved what they posted, but it's getting to the point where it's like, are you fueling the fire when it comes to the division and again the scrolling? Like, is it just clickbait? Like, are we just sharing things to share things, or are we actually helping make a difference? Like, are we actually helping change the trajectory of where this is going? Like, I don't want to just, when you're constantly like taking in all the news and taking in all the information, and then it turns into fear and it turns into, we're fucked, you're letting them win. You know what I mean? Like, yes, it's so important to stay informed and to stay up to date, and knowledge is power. I preach that all the time. But when it gets to the point where like that's all you're doing and you're not actually going into your actual life to make changes or to break away from the system, it really, you're just going to live in fear. And that is letting them win. Like, that's exactly what they want. They want you consumed by all this information. And us humans are not supposed to have all this information. Like, that's why everybody's so stressed and has anxiety and all this stuff, because we're not meant to have this overload of constant information. So, like, yes, it's important to stay up to date on what's going on and all that stuff so that you can prepare your family the best that you can and all of
Yeah.
that. It just, if it's consuming you to the point where you're living in fear, like, take a step back, go outside, go in your garden, go hang out with your kids, go take your dog for a walk, go and put the phone down and realize, like, everything's actually okay. Like, even despite the chaos and the corruption and all of that, we're okay. And we can only control what we can control. I think that's the biggest thing, is when you're trying to control or worry about the things that you literally can't control, then obviously you're in that fear-based mindset and all that stuff. But when you switch to, like, okay, what do I actually have control over? Like, can I prepare my home? Can I start a garden? Can I get animals? Things like that. And obviously everyone's in different spots. Some people are in the city, some people are in town, but there is always a way that you can take that control back and focus on that. So, like, if you're living in that fear, just take a step back, because, like, it's not good. We can't be there anymore. Like, yeah, we can't be living here.
No, and I think that that's actually part of the trap. I've been doing a lot of like research, and like the adrenaline rush of fear is actually so addictive.
It
So
is. Yeah.
are people, whether no matter what side you're on, just living in the addiction of like that fear and being right, that self-righteousness, or are you actually empowered to take actions in your life, whatever that looks like? And listen to you, I say your heart or source or God, listen to those little nudges that specifically are for you to go and do something. So what would be 3 tips you give someone? Because I know people are going to hear your story and they're going to go, that's great for Meg, but like, how do I do that? I don't have the resources. I don't have this. I don't have, and there might be some, blocks for them that are valid, but what would you say are 3 easy steps for people to get started if they actually feel that pull to start a homestead, to go and move away from the system?
Oh, that's a hard question. Because, like I said, everyone's in such a different spot. But it is, I guess, looking at your life, like if you're in the city, or if you're in town, obviously getting a milk cow is not going to be your solution. You know what I mean? Like, there's going to be different things. So it's taking a look at, like, what your life looks like, what your family looks like, what your needs look like. And then how can you, like, the more that you can stop relying on the system, the more in control you're going to feel, the more you are going to feel like you're taking your power back, that you're actually doing something versus sitting there and just like worrying or thinking you can't do anything. Preparing your home would be like my number one advice for everybody, because I just preach that all the time. And that can start, you can do that no matter where you are. And that's just buying extra groceries every time you go, or if you get an extra paycheck or like a bonus, or maybe you have an extra source of income. That would be my other one, is having an extra source of income, because the way the world is heading, most people are already living paycheck to paycheck, and the cost of living is just creeping up while your paychecks are not. And the more that happens, the more people are going to rely on the system. And if you can have an extra source of income that can go, take it out in cash, put it into savings, take it out and prep your home, go buy food, go get some extra water, do all of that stuff. I'm trying to think of like more specific things that people can do, but it's like,
I think you're hitting the nail on the head. It's like thinking about those basic needs, like food.
yeah, what are your family's basic needs? Because again, that's totally different for everyone too, right? Like, so it's sitting down and just thinking, like, where do I rely on the system to provide for my family? And like, start with the basic needs, right? Like food, water, shelter, things like that. And then slowly, like, checking things off, like, okay, let's take back control of that. Let's take back control of that. And I think people get really overwhelmed because you want to do it all at once, right? And then especially if you follow someone that's been prepping for years and you see all the things that they're doing, but it's just starting somewhere. Like, having anything is better than having nothing. And yeah, I think the best thing that people can be doing is just in any way that they can, breaking away from the system. And like I said, that'll grow and grow. All the little baby steps will all add up. And a year from now, you'll be like, wow, like, good for us. And you'll feel so much better. So much better.
So you had no animals before the pandemic? Is that a true statement? I get so excited when you have your goats having babies. I'm like, okay, I'm glued to your stories. Like, I need to see these baby goats. Like, and I live in the city. It's not like I'm getting baby goats, but yeah, your stories and how you show the animals and your journey with the milk cow, because that was challenging. That's been challenging for you. So something I noticed about your stories and what you do is you do show the ups and downs. You're not just like happy, happy, happy all the time, but you're also not, and I don't know what it is. I'm exploring this. Sometimes you see people and it feels like, it seems like they're sad, but it doesn't feel authentic or something.
Right.
But like all your posts where you're showing emotion, it feels genuine to me. So how do you have the courage to do that? Or like, have you always been like that? Like, you know?
No, I've always been an oversharer. So
Yeah, me too. So maybe we're like, this is just, yeah.
so maybe I think one of the hard parts that I do have to like push through when it comes to sharing the bad side of homesteading is like I'm worried. I do get a lot of fear of like I guess judgment of like, oh, she fucked up, or oh, she's doing it wrong, or I guess more from like more experienced farmers, because I am new to this. And so the only way to learn is through trial and error and to jump in when it comes to that stuff. But it is a lot of like, oh, I'm worried like that people might take it the wrong way. I've never had anyone take it the wrong way, or at least they don't tell me that they take it the wrong way. But I think a lot of people appreciate that, because especially like if you do live in the city and you don't have animals and you're like, oh, goats and everything's so fun and whatever, but you don't think about like the bad stuff, or not even the bad stuff, just the hard stuff. Like
Yeah.
it's hard work to take care of animals every day, right? So I like to show people that, because I do follow people that it's like it's all rainbows and lollipops, and I'm like, bullshit. You lying.
You're like, so what would you say? Because you're like, there's that fear. I get that even with what I'm doing here. You kind of have to go through the process to get better at stuff. Some people are saying you have to go through a cringy phase to get to where it's better. But what would you say are some mistakes you've made that you can give advice for people who might be homesteading in the future, or even because again, you're building a social media like brand. This is part of where you gain income and stuff as well. I'm assuming we'll talk about your intentional living community later too. What's some mistakes that you've made?
I don't know. I don't know if I would even call them mistakes, because like
Mm.
I've learned so much. I know that's really cliche to say, but like I wouldn't have known that they were mistakes if I hadn't have jumped in and like done it. And you know what I mean? Not a mistake per se, but I guess like the number one advice I have for people is like learning from others and like YouTube videos and people that have done it before you is so helpful. But at the same time, every single person that I know does it differently. They all homestead differently. They all care for their animals differently. There's some things that are common sense and kind of like basic, but everybody does it differently. And I think if I had waited to get it perfect or to have everything that I needed, I wouldn't have done it as fast, I guess, or I don't know. I don't have a lot of like regrets, but my advice to people is like just do it. Like just jump in. Don't listen to everyone's like opinions and whatever. Like you're going to learn as you go, and there's going to be things that you can't learn beforehand anyway. So you can try to be as prepared as you can, but there's going to be some things that you don't know till you jump in head first and you actually like get your hands dirty and start doing the things. So I think there are like lots of things there's a lot of noise right nowadays, but a lot of it is extremely helpful. And like I learned through YouTube and Instagram from following people that have gone before me and done the things. But at the same time, there's a lot of information. So it's like, just do the thing, and you're gonna mess up. You're gonna have mistakes, but you're gonna have lots of successes too. And it's all worth it. Like I said, I don't think I have any regrets per se, but definitely learned a lot, a lot.
I think that's such good advice for in general. In
Yeah.
general. Because I see people, and I've done this in my life, where it's like you're spinning your wheels trying to prepare so much that you miss out on the like experience of actually doing it.
The
Yeah.
experience, it is.
Yeah. So then what have been some of the challenges you've faced? And what did you learn from them?
Most of our challenges have been fencing, as in like I would do my chicken run different, I would do my goat pen differently. But other than that, like there's nothing like even my whole milk cow situation. If you don't follow me, I do have a story or a highlight saved on my Instagram that kind of talks about that experience. But that was, again, a big learning curve. I don't know if I would do, there are some things I would do differently, but I don't know. It's hard because, like I said, it's all been learning curve. So I don't know if I would do anything differently. It would just, and again,
Yeah.
the pens and the chicken run, like I wouldn't know to do that differently if I hadn't done it wrong the first time. So
And I think, as you said earlier too, it's like everybody's experience will be different.
yeah.
So it's like they don't have the same land you have. They don't have like the same exact animals, so it's going to be different. What's the biggest lie you once believed? This is one of my favorite questions for people.
Oh my God, so many. That the government cares about us? Like, I don't know. I was very opposite to like what I believe now. Like, I was raised, my parents still don't have the same views as me, but I was raised like, you follow the rules. That makes you a good person. Like, my mom, it physically hurts her to break rules. Like, even if they make no logical sense, she will follow the rules because she thinks that is what is good, makes you a good person, all that kind of stuff. So I was raised to believe a lot of things that I now know are not true, but oh God, like they're all massive lies. But probably just overall that like I genuinely thought like if the government was going to do wrong, like we would know about it. Duh, like they're public figures. Like how would we not know? So I thought that was like an old, not since World War II type of thing. Like there was a couple bad ones then, but not anymore.
I know, isn't that wild? Because I just did a reel talking about how like when people send me government websites, they're like, you're a journalist, look at the government website. I'm like, no, a journalist is not supposed to. You look at the government website to get information, but not to trust it.
Yeah.
My job is to try to find holes in it, and it's not that hard. It hasn't been that hard.
Yeah, you can't just take the first thing you see at face value. Like you have to, and that's the biggest thing is I've noticed that a lot of the people that aren't awake right now, and they probably won't be, are people that just they don't want to take the time to look into things. It's pure laziness sometimes. Like it takes time to be like, okay, here's some information that someone sent me. Like now, like you said, let me find the holes in that. Let me take that piece, go make sure that that's true. Like it takes time to look into things and to do your research. And all these people that make fun of us for doing that, I'm like, do you hear yourself? Like,
I've had multiple people say to me, I haven't looked into it, but this, and I'm like, so you haven't looked into it, but I have.
You
Yeah.
can.
I think it goes deeper though, and this is why I'm really fascinated with like the psychology and transformational healing. I think it's a lack of trust in yourself to discern truth.
Because
sorry.
Because we've been taught that we just trust the professionals, don't question anything.
Yeah.
Because there's no way that you are smart enough to read what these experts have said. Like,
yeah, it's true. And like, of course there's humility. It's like, there's a level of humility that goes into knowing that I don't have expertise in everything.
Sorry,
but I also,
okay, that's fine. I'll be right up. Thank you, buddy. Sorry, carry on.
No, it's okay. How many kids do you have again? Three, that's what I thought. Yeah. I was blown away. I was looking at your littlest, the girl, the other day, and I was like, I remember starting to follow you when she was like a baby, and now she's not a baby anymore. She's I know. It's so crazy. It's so crazy. Anyway, yeah, so the researching element, it is fascinating to hear people be like, you don't know what you're talking about. Look at the government website. And I'm like, look through history. The government wasn't just letting you know what was going on.
Never.
Ever. They knew about residential schools as well.
Yeah. They were part of it.
Yeah, and that's what's been mind-blowing for me through this is while simultaneously people are getting upset about findings of the residential schools, and I know that there's questions around that as well, but they're simultaneously getting upset about that while supporting the government infringing on our rights and freedoms, and actually infringing on our rights and freedoms. It's wild.
It is wild. And just to watch kind of the hypocrisy with all the things that, because there's so many things going on, right? Like there's Black Lives Matter and they care about that, but they don't care about, like, it's just, it blows my mind. And there's hypocrisy all around, which is why it's like, it's hard to be mad at these people because you just know that they're clearly brainwashed. Like, they're not thinking for themselves. But at the same time, it's infuriating because it's like, well, I used to not think for myself, but now I do. Like, why can't you? You know?
Okay, so I actually have this question, because this is what lots of people have said. It's like they feel that their family members, like you or I, have been the ones who are brainwashed and been pulled into ideologies that are false narratives. They really truly believe that about us, just like we believe that about them. So what are your measurements, or how do you critically think through to know that you aren't brainwashed now?
I guess, like, like when I first woke up, I was really seeking the validation of, like, tell me I'm right. So it was like I would consume a lot of the information that would validate what I would want or what I was saying or whatever. And then it got to the point where it was like, you don't want to be a hypocrite, right? If I'm calling these people brainwashed, I need to make sure that I'm not. So at the end of the day, it was like,
they went outside.
Okay, can you go with them? Thank you. I love you. Thank you so much. It would help mommy so much. I know they're not going to listen to you because you're their big brother. It sucks, sweetie. You help me out for a little bit, and then we're going to go to town later, okay? Thank you. So I would, like, take a step back and be like, what was I going to say?
We're talking about hypocrisy. You were caught up in the validation seeking at the beginning.
Yes. So I would take a step back and just, like, evaluate the information that I'm consuming, because like I said, we tell people to look into things, like go and do your research. But then there was information that I would take in and I would immediately take it as truth because it validated what I was thinking. So there were times where I would share things and then it would turn out that's actually not true. So I would always admit that or delete it or whatever if it's not true. But in the beginning, I was very, like I said, wanting that validation. And then it got to the point where it was like, okay, like, I can't be a hypocrite as well either. So it was just, again, like, doing your due diligence and looking into the information that you're sharing and you're confirming or whatever. And yeah, sometimes, like, we're going to be wrong too, right? We're going to share false information too, because there's so much of it around. But at the end of the day, like, when I sit down and I put the phone down and I put all of that information that I'm consuming away, like, at the end, like, and I had to do that so much. Like, am I crazy? Like, am I the one that's being, like you said, brought into the crazy thinking or whatever? And every single time I sat back and I thought about it, I was like, no. I know with every ounce of my being that, not that we're right, but just that we do see things differently than those people. Do you know what I mean? And I hate to say those people as well. I don't like to do that, but they see things very differently, or they're sometimes not even seeing what we're seeing, right? Because when you piss them off, they usually unfollow, and then they're not seeing that information that you're sharing. They're not going to see it on the news that they're watching. So I think it's just really making sure that we're doing our due diligence to, is the information that we're consuming and sharing also true? Like, are we spreading misinformation? Because now more than ever, we have to make sure that we are sharing correct information, because we are the spreaders of misinformation, you know? So we have to make sure, like, actually, no, I got receipts for this. Like, and I think for people, like, because I share so much on my social media, I do have to go and do the research because I'm helping wake people up. So I'm sharing lots of information about it. But if it's someone that's just consuming that information, like, they think the same way as us, but they're just consuming, they're not sharing, again, don't take all of it as truth. Like, go and look into it. Just because it sits right, or even if you think it might be true, like, still do that due diligence, and don't, I guess, get complacent and lazy, you know what I mean? And just, like, take it as, because it's what you want to hear, or it's from people that you trust. Because I get people that are like, oh, you're my news source, like, anything you share, I just know it's true. And I'm like, no, don't do that, because I still share some stuff that turn out to not be true. But I'm human, I'm a mom, sometimes I'm busy sharing stuff that's just, like, quick, and I'm like, oh, sorry, that was, you know, fake news, whatever. But so yeah, I think it's just, no matter how true we think it might be, we still need to do our due diligence and make sure that it is true.
Yeah, I think that's so amazing that you say that. And I would say that the places, in my opinion, like, the people who are saying that, the place they're saying like, do your due diligence, keep looking, question what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Those are people that are interested in growth and critical thinking and expansion, not self-righteousness and needing to be right, which I've
Yeah.
100% been there as well. I go in and out of that at times. Like, it can feel so good to feel like I'm not alone, I'm not crazy. When I first started speaking out, June 8th last year, I was like a media teacher at NAIT, and I spoke out, and for 24 hours I literally was like, oh wait, am I the crazy one? Like,
Right.
so intensely, like such intense fear. And then, like, my dad was saying, Nicole, the fact that you're going through those emotions and questioning if you're the crazy one is a good sign.
Absolutely.
It's a good sign, right? Yeah. Okay, how do you deal with haters? I wrote this down because I'm not saying, I don't know the perfect way to do this. I'm kind of creating potentially some courses around or information around this. Like, how do you deal with haters?
Um, I think a lot of I've had haters, quote unquote, like my whole life, I guess. So like I was bullied in school, then I was the bully, and then like I've always had haters. But at the same time, because of that, have like spent so long trying to fit in as well, or like not trying to piss people off. Like I could mold into groups very easily because I was like, so I spent I don't know how to explain it. Like I used to think I was authentic, but I wasn't. Like I wouldn't swear on media, and it's like I have a trucker mouth, so obviously that wasn't very authentic. But then when I started out was like my biggest experience with haters for sure. Like before that, like it'd be, girls in high school, things like that. But then when I started speaking out on social media, it was like it brings out the crazy. And it sucks because it's people and it's people that have followed you. For me, it was people that had followed me for years, or I went to high school with them, or whatever. And they loved me right up until they didn't agree with me. And then it was just like, it brings out the nasty in people. But again, at the end of the day, I was like, am I doing am I showing up in a way that I think is right and that I think is important and that I think is needed and that I'm passionate about? And the answer was always yes. And so it was like every time I got someone that, like, the block button's your best friend, first off. Like if it is someone that, if it's a friend that I have a history with or whatever, I'm not gonna be like, block, you're gone out of my life. But if it's repetitive, then yes. But it was usually people that, again, don't know me. They know me through social media. They don't know me. They think they know me, but they don't. And so those people, it was just like block, bless, and release, because I'm like, I ain't dealing with you. And then the people that it hits harder because it is people that especially family. My brother, we're blocked on everything. My mom still doesn't follow me. My mom and dad are good. Like we don't have the same views, but they respect mine. They appreciate my lifestyle. My mom just cannot follow me because of the stuff that I share. It just triggers her so bad. Which is fine. But again, I'm like, you're never going to see any of this information because you just, like, come on. So haters, I think it comes down, it's all self-work. It all comes down to like, am I okay? I don't know how to say it. Like, you have to be okay at the end of the day, like sharing that stuff. And it comes down to being your authentic self. Like when you are being true to yourself and you're showing up authentically and you're speaking your truth, it is so freeing. It is like a weight is lifted off your shoulders, and you are going to have people that you piss off. That's one person or it's hundreds of people. You're going to piss someone off with your perspective because they have a different one than you. And when you understand that there's truth, but there kind of is no truth, because you could talk to someone that their truth is completely opposite to your truth, and you could both die thinking the exact same thing, or opposite things, I guess. So it's kind of understanding that you're never going to please everyone, ever, ever. You're never going to please anyone. You cannot control the way that people perceive you. Like, you can't, no matter how much you try to explain yourself or justify yourself or why you think the way that you do or whatever. There are people that will never, ever see that perspective of you. They have their image made up in their head from the little snippets that they see on your social media. And again, even if it's people that know you, that you've known your whole life, whether that's friends or family, those are the hardest ones. And like it that ate me alive in the beginning. Like it was so hard for me to have people that loved me my whole life. And I was a bad kid. Like I did some bad stuff and they loved me through all of that. And then now they think that shouldn't have the same rights as them, or that my kids and my family deserve to be called all of these names and tell me that I'm killing people and all this stuff. Like it was really, really hard. Like I said, the random people was like block, bless, and release. But when it's people that you know, like it's okay for it to eat you up. Like it's okay for you to be upset about that. Like I'm not saying just forget about them, like it's fine. Like it's really hard when people you've known your whole life look at you a certain way and you feel that need to justify yourself. You feel the need to even like revert your views back to the way they were so you can like fit in again. You know what I mean? You're like, oh, I wish I didn't wake up. But at the same time, obviously not. But like I said, it's knowing that even if it's people that you've loved your whole life, like me pretending that I'm something that I'm not, or me dulling myself down or being quiet about things that I'm passionate about is not worth any relationship. I don't care how close we are or how long I've known you. If you don't want me to be my normal self, or for me to, if you expect me to just zip my mouth and be quiet so that you can be comfortable, like I don't want that relationship in my life. And that's the last year I've been like completely okay with that. But before that, it was really, really hard. And it's an emotional roller coaster. And you're literally like, you're grieving past relationships. Like you're grieving the loss of a family member or a friend or something like that. And that's really hard. And it's something that's really like unprecedented. We haven't had to really deal with that before. Like it's weird times, and it's okay for it to not be okay. You know what I mean? Like it's okay to not just be like, to shrug off the haters and be like, it's fine. Like it can hurt, even if it's randoms on the internet that are eating you up. Like it's okay. But you have to then put your phone down, take a step back, and be like, am I showing up authentically? Like, do I, at the end of the day, I'm okay with who I am. I do have people that love me for who I am, and focusing on that rather than the couple people that are just like, because those people are loud. You know what I mean? Like they can be really loud. So it's, yeah. And again, it's okay to block family members too. And it gets to that point. Because my brother, like, I left him there for a while, and then it was like he would respond to every story, never trying to have a civil conversation, just and I was like, we're done, dude. Like I'm not doing this anymore. It's clearly annoying you, stressing you out. Like I will do you the favor and I will block you so you don't have to see my stuff anymore. And we still talk a bit. We've started talking again now. Like he wouldn't see my family for Christmas and things like that. But yeah.
Yeah, no, there's so much there. I want to go to a couple things. First off, I said this the other day too. I said, we're grieving people who are still alive. We're grieving the loss of relationship of people who are still alive, which is so challenging. But you said something a while back, and I want you to clarify more. You said you used to think you were authentic and you weren't. And this is something I've been dealing with too. And I'm still like questioning, like, am I truly being authentic? What's that? Can you expand on that more?
Yeah, I guess like when I looked back, because I was in like I did a network marketing company for 6 years, and you're always told like show up authentically, be yourself. But it was very like surface level. Again, like I wouldn't swear. Like it was, I don't know. And again, it was more the opinions. Like I wouldn't share how I truly felt about certain things. And I am a very opinionated person. So like to be that quiet on social media was really hard. So, like I don't even.
Yeah, it's like there's like a freedom that comes because you said it's like free when you actually can be yourself. And I don't get the vibe. Like, what do you? Are there times that you do, considerately filter, like people going around just like telling everybody truths? Like I don't think that's authentic either. Like just going out into the world and being like, you need this to wake up. You need to wake up. So what is the difference?
I don't know. I think if you're wanting to post something or share something, or even if you're in person and just talk about something, and then you hear that little voice in your head that's like, no, like don't do that, or be quiet, or they wouldn't like that, or whatever. I think that's not being authentic. When you start to backpedal and you talk yourself out of something that you really wanted to talk about, or you're really passionate about, or, you know, maybe you want to make a reel and you start making it and you're like, suddenly you start thinking of all the people that aren't going to, you know what I mean? You're like, well, what if this aunt sees it, or this person, or whatever? And then you start to backpedal. I think that's where you can be like, okay, am I showing up authentically if I'm censoring myself for other people or to make other people comfortable? Because again, you're never going to please everyone. There's always going to be people that you make feel uncomfortable. But as long as you're doing it in a respectful way, I think that's the most important thing. As long as you're showing up authentically in a respectful way, you're not doing anybody any harm. And again, it's social media. If people don't like it, they can unfollow you.
It's true. And honestly, I made a rule very early on because I could see people wanted to like personally attack me for the content I put out. Same. And I was like, I'm not going to personally attack anyone. So I think that's it. Like, if I'm not personally attacking people in my content, if I'm just presenting information and stories, and I definitely have a strong voice in my head at times, it's like, what is this person going to think of this reel, or what is this, or is this too cringy? And I've been massively like pushing through that the last.
Good. And it gets easier. I still have multiple times where I'm like, oh, I shouldn't post this or whatever. And I'm like, no, I'm gonna. Like, but yeah, it gets easier for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is a perfect what's it called? Segue? That something? There's people listening to this conversation that feel so like we've probably both been there. That, you know, that weight, that heaviness of not speaking up, you know, like that horrible feeling of feeling like powerless. That's what it feels like. It feels powerless, and just you want to speak up, but it's like paralyzing almost, the idea. What advice would you give people who are sitting, they've been following you, they've been following me, they know they have that truth, they want to speak up, but they just do not know how to start?
You got to bite the bullet and do it, because it's just like anything else that we've talked about. You're not going to do it if you wait to feel ready or whatever. But it's understanding that you might have people message you to question what you're posting or whatever, and knowing also that you don't need to explain yourself to people. Like, if that part's stressing you out, like, it's okay to leave people on red. Like, it's okay to be like, I do not need to justify my thoughts to you. But if you're just starting out, like, share other people's stuff. Like, if you follow people that make reels or posts that you're like, yes, like, that's what I was thinking, share it, because then you're not having to go out of your way to put things into words or whatever. And the more you share stuff, people are going to immediately know where you stand, or like the opinions that you have, or, you know, when you start to share things, it's going to click for them. And it gets easier and easier, but you're probably going to get some backlash, and it's probably going to feel really gross, and it's probably going to feel like you have a knot in your stomach. And after you post, like, I have posted things where, like, I have had sweat dripping off my hands because I'm so nervous, because I know it triggers people, and I know that I'm going to get backlash. But one of the other things that you would mention, like, people like attack you personally, that's one thing I will never ever tolerate. Like, if somebody messages me and they go off on me and they attack me personally, or my family, or that, you know, they feel bad that I'm the mom raising my kid, whatever, I will immediately block you, because I will not tolerate that. And again, I will never stoop to that level, that if I disagree with you, I do not feel the need to offend you to get my point across. Like, I can argue like an adult and give you my opinion or facts or whatever to argue my point. I don't need to resort to insults to feel better, or to make myself feel like I'm right or whatever. So those are an immediate block for me. I'm like, I will not. And if it's really bad, or they do it repetitive times, I will screenshot their stuff and I'll put it on my story, and I'll be like, don't do stupid things like this. Like, you know, but if it's someone that is genuinely trying to, like, if someone responds to you and they disagree with you, like, there are going to be people that disagree with you and they genuinely want to have a conversation. Like, they actually want to hear why you think that way. And those are a lot of the times people that you can wake up, the ones that are wanting to have those. And it's not that you need to, like, have this, you don't have to have this mission of wanting to wake every single person up, because everything that you share is a little droplet. It's like planting the seed. And every time you post something else, it's going to water that seed. And eventually something is going to click for those people where they question something, whether it could be anything. By you sharing things, you're starting to turn the wheels for people that might not have seen that if they didn't follow you, you know? Because the people that are very outspoken, they've probably already unfollowed. So
I think that's such a good way to put it. It's like people's voices are needed. Like you and I are needed. Other people who, if you feel that nudge, like you're just planting little seeds. Don't feel the pressure of having to wake people up. But when people are authentically themselves, or at least, because I still struggle with that, it's like at least willing to
yeah,
be authentic and to be vulnerable and to have conversations and to be curious. That's I think where humanity is going to shift. It's not going to be on the extremes of either side, needing to be right and to personally attack other people. I don't think people actually realize when they're personally attacking people now, because it's so normalized. They're like, you're an anti-veer and la da da. They don't realize that's a personal attack. That's not facts. Those are not
yeah,
facts.
yeah.
It's wild. Yeah. I've had people be like, I thought you were such a compassionate person and da-da-da-da. And it's like, that's a personal attack. You're not talking to the content I've created.
I know. It it actually made some of the messages I get, I'm like, those are literally all assumptions and none of that is true. Like what, and that's the thing, like you will never be able to please everyone or like justify yourself to everyone, because they will see you through the perspective of their lens and their own experiences. And that's the other thing, like if you go into it with like this mission of wanting to wake people up, it can be really aggressive and it can come off the wrong way, and it does the exact opposite. It makes people go mm-mm. It turns those people off, and you're never going to get through to them. But if you can share things in a compassionate way and share it of, because that's the thing, like before I was like left versus right, you're wrong, I'm right, and now I try with everything to see it from both sides, because I was once on that side. And if I can see it from both sides, I have a better chance to share things or explain things that are going to speak to both sides, and so that I can, if you come across it again, like I'm right, you're wrong, these people are just going to turn off and you're never going to get through to them. But if you can share, because I have people that follow me that don't agree with me on a lot of things, but they like maybe my homesteading. And I've been able to get through to a lot of those people because I share things in a way that they might not agree, but it can still be consumable. A lot of people don't like the way that I share things, and that's fine. They don't follow me anymore. You know what I mean? But there are people that are going to listen to you if you have a different opinion, if you do it respectfully and you do it in a way that is open for debate. You know, like I will have conversations with you if you disagree with me, as long as you're not a dick to me. Like if you don't insult me, I will have a conversation with you. And I will have people that I'll block because they send me a disgusting message, and I'm like, I'm not going to even entertain that. Block them, they'll create a new account or whatever, and they'll message me and they're just like, oh, you just block as soon as someone disagrees. I'm like, no, that is false. I've had plenty of conversations with people that disagree with me, but they can just do it respectfully like an adult.
I know, that's a huge thing too, is people are like, oh, you're all about transparency and authenticity, Nicole, and you don't want to block people, you don't want censorship. It's like, if you're personally attacking me, like I don't need to. Yeah, I think that's a boundary, right? But again,
Yeah.
I don't think people realize when they're personally attacking at something. That's the wild thing. This has been such an amazing conversation, Meg. I really can feel like you're light, you know? And I think it's interesting you said that you were a bad kid or something, like you did shitty things. Like I've done shitty things in my life. And what is amazing, and this is kind of like, I did a post the other day that said, sometimes people will be offended by your healing when they're tied to their wounds. I more and more think people actually don't mind when people are at shitty places because it makes them feel good.
That's true, yeah.
Like I don't think it's conscious. I think it's subconscious for the most part. But like you talking like this, I'm like, yeah, they didn't mind when you did shitty things because they could still have a superiority potentially.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah. So it's just fascinating to navigate this. I love that you brought up the hypocrisy, because it's happening on both sides. The fear is happening on both sides. The isolation is happening on both sides. Like, can we actually bridge and talk and have connection? Have
Yeah.
connection.
I think you really get to a different spot where you realize, like, when you get out of the left versus right, because I still follow people that are full on left versus right still. They're like, those lefties, blah blah blah. And while yes, the lefties are kind of dumb, they're still, you have to understand that you're playing into the system when you do that. Like that is by pure design. And when you actually sit down and have a conversation with these people, like a genuine conversation, you can kind of sometimes see that you have a lot of similarities. And most of us, majority of people, are in the middle. There are far right, there is far left, but majority of us are in the middle. And like when you come to understand that and you realize like, wow, I was like playing into the system. Like I was one of their puppets by being like left versus right, me. Like, yeah, I don't agree with what a lot of the left does or their ideologies or whatever, but that doesn't mean that every single person is a bad person or that we can't get along. Like when I kind of came to the understanding of my brother, we're complete opposites. But when I come to the understanding of we will probably never agree. We will never, I'm never going to convince him to come to our side or whatever. We're never going to agree, but we are both human beings that are trying our best. We are doing what we think is right. And I have to understand that at the end of the day, right? And try not to judge people through my perspective, right? And the whole hypocrisy thing. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's so true. Now, people, I'm sure they've heard this and like hear about the haters and stuff, and they feel like, why would I speak up? Do you want to just share why would someone step into speaking up, being authentic, and planting those seeds?
Because it's so important. It's so important. Like like I said earlier, the knowing that there's so many people that feel the same way is so important. Like that feeling like you're alone is not good for people. And as soon as you share something, like I said, people are going to know where you stand immediately. So every single person that is also sitting there going, I wish I could share. I wish because there are so many people that feel the same way as us. They are just dead silent about it. None of their family or friends know. They don't talk about it on social media because they're so petrified of that backlash or having to explain themselves or justify or whatever. And every time you share something, whether, like I said, it's somebody's reel or it's somebody else's post or you screenshot their story or whatever that looks like, every single time you do that, you are empowering or inspiring someone that also feels like they're alone or also feels like they can't speak out. And it's like a ripple effect, right? The more that we do it, the more it's going to happen. And the more people that know they're not alone, like you think of the trucker convoy, the amount of people the amount of people that started speaking up after that, the amount of people that were hanging flags from their vehicles, because again, as soon as you hang a Canada flag now, I know what your perspective is. So the second that you do that, you are going to inspire so many people. And even if you don't inspire people to speak out, you're going to make them feel like they're not alone. And which is so important because people need that community and they need to know that there are people that aren't giving up just because COVID's over, even though they're starting to ramp it up again. You know what I mean? Like, because that's the frustrating part is they do all this stuff and then they back off for long enough for people to start forgetting what they've done. And then you start to think that everyone around you is forgetting what's happened. And you're like, oh my God. So again, the more that you can speak up, the more people will feel like they're not alone, which is so important right now. So important.
And someone just said that you helped them speak out, and you helped me speak out too. There was a few people that it's like it really did cause a ripple effect. Emotionally, though, I'm curious, what's the difference between before when you were holding back versus now when you're like for you as a person?
Oh my God, it's everything. Like I'm literally, like I said, it's like a weight lifted off your shoulders. Do it. Like if you're sitting there like thinking, is it worth it? It's 110% worth it. Like you will step into this version of yourself that is so authentic and you just start to level up in every aspect. Like once you start to own your shit, who you are, own your truth, you start to not feel the need to justify yourself to others. Like it's a very freeing feeling and everybody should do it.
Yeah, and I just want to point out what you've said too, and I've witnessed with you and in other people's lives. You also get way more comfortable with being okay with like, oh, I was a hypocrite at one point. Oh, I did this at one point. Like you just become able to deal with the things that maybe you wanted to push down and hide from yourself in the past.
Yeah. Put your ego aside. It's okay to be wrong. It's okay to, like, I had to admit that I was wrong my entire life and that everything I once knew was true was not. And that's a hard pill to swallow, right? It's, yeah, putting your ego aside and knowing that, again, you're probably going to get butthurt when someone messages you or whatever, but it's all worth it. It is so worth it. Because at the end of the day, you have to go to sleep. If the internet was gone and you didn't have all the people to worry about offending, would you feel good with how you've shown up? Like, can you sleep at night knowing, like, I show up 100% authentically and I don't care what other people think? They don't pay my bills. They don't live my life. They don't do any of that. And because I'm going to say 99% of the time that people don't show up authentically is because of a fear of somebody else. It's something outside of ourselves that we're wanting validation or whatever. And yeah, the more that you step out of that, again, the more you'll inspire other people to do. And it's just that ripple effect. And it feels so good.
It feels so amazing. And I will say it can cause initial pain a little bit, but what that pain is just showing you what's not true in your life, in my opinion. So like if people start to fall away from you, which has happened to me, which has happened to a lot of people, there might be a little space, but then you're going to attract people who really love your heart, not just how you curated yourself to make them feel comfortable, right?
You find more people. And I always say, like, when I first started speaking up, I noticeably had unfollows, right? I had all these people unfollowing me, and it was every time I celebrated it, because I was like, the old me, if I got an unfollow, that would then make me want to backpedal. I would stop posting as much because I can see that I'm offending people or whatever. But then I started to celebrate, and I'm like, for every person that leaves, it's making room for one more. And it did. I gained like thousands of people that actually want to hear what I say. They actually respect my opinion. Again, whether they agree with it or not, they respect me as a person. And that's the type of people that I want to surround myself with. Because social media, again, yes, I have lots of followers, but it's still my space. I'm still going to tolerate what I would tolerate in my normal life. So I want people in my space that are good people and they love me for me. And I'm not having to pretend just to have people there that don't like me, you know?
Yeah, and again, whether they agree with you or not, whether they're V'd or not, whether it's not that. I like the idea of not necessarily like I like-minded people, but I want like-hearted people in my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Connectors. Okay, how can people support you, work with you, learn from you? What you got?
Instagram page. My Instagram is really all I use. I have my intentional living community, which you can find through my page as well if you're wanting more of like community aspects and start breaking away from the system and homesteading, prepping, recipes, all that kind of stuff. But those are basically my two things. So you can find everywhere.
Beautiful. So yeah, so people could look at your link, and then you have an intentional living community where people will get like recipes or ideas or just have more information if they want to start homesteading as well, right? Yeah. Oh my gosh, Meg, this is such a great conversation. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'm so excited to see what else you're creating, how you're stepping more into authenticity, information that you share. Yeah, I'm so excited. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I love seeing your stuff.
Awesome. Okay, have a great day, and everyone follow Meg. She's amazing. I'm sure lots of people on here are following you already because you really do have that authenticity that is magnetic. So yes, cheers. Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.